Hello and welcome to another episode of Legal Talk with Alina, presented on Now Media. I am thrilled to, first of all, be your hostess, Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. I am an attorney who specializes in estate planning and estate administration here in Florida. And one of the greatest benefits I have as being the hostess of Legal Talk is I get to interview the most brilliant attorneys across the U.S. And today I am thrilled that I am joined by Tamina Watson, immigration attorney. She is located in Seattle, Washington. However, she assists clients with immigration needs and visa, especially in the business world. So Tamina Watson is the founder of Watson Immigration Law and is one of the Business Insider's top immigration attorneys for startups in America. She is an internationally recognized and award-winning expert in U.S. immigration law. She has helped hundreds of successful startups and millions of dollars of business investments in the U.S. A much sought-after industry expert, Tamina is a speaker and media spokesperson who has appeared in major outlets, including the New York Times, NPR, and CNN. And you can catch Tamina on her own podcast and get her books, The Startup Visa, which includes the best-selling book, U.S. Immigration Visa Guide for Startups and Founders. Tamina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Alina. I'm so honored to be here.
Tamina, I have to say, especially with, with the climate that we have politically, people tend to think immigration as an issue with like the border security or work visas, things like that. However, you actually have a very much, I would say, a niche aspect of immigration that many people, myself included, know either nothing about or extremely little. So can you please give me a little bit of background as to what immigration services you provide through your legal business?
Well, thank you so much. That's a really great question, particularly given the climate that you just mentioned. When people listen to the news, they generally associate immigration with the border, but I don't do any work with the border, not in my day-to-day practice. My practice is business immigration. But what I want your listeners and viewers to really understand is immigration is synonymous with the economy. Whether you are getting apples from the grocery store or if you are looking at your phone, there are immigrants behind the scenes that are keeping those functions going. And so the visas that I help people with are H-1B visas, O visas, E-2 visas, L visas, and a myriad of other business visas. And this is really about people who are starting businesses in the United States, people who are coming into the US to actually expand their existing businesses, people who have existing businesses in the United States and they need to hire talent from around the world. Those are the types of visas I help with.
Oh, and that is really important and brilliant way of putting it, because it is so true, immigration and economy. As you were talking, of course, I immediately thought of SpaceX, Elon Musk. I mean, taking SpaceX, for instance, you have such high technologically needs in that industry where you may very well need to bring someone from, I'm going to use your home country of the United Kingdom or elsewhere to come and work for you. So you mentioned a myriad of alphabets, if you will. So I was just curious if you would be able to explain to our clients, you could tell them an attorney, our audience, the primary differences between the common work visas like H-1B and L visas.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So what happens is, first of all, let me just touch on the Elon Musk example you mentioned. Elon Musk is one example of the incredible talent that the United States has attracted from decades and decades and from all over the world. So if you just think about Albert Einstein, he was from Europe. If you think about all the way to the time the United States became the country that we're in, people emigrated from the United Kingdom and other places. This country is really built on the work that immigrants have done. And as the decades and the eras have changed, the type of workers absolutely evolved as well. So just like you mentioned, technology, that is the primary thing that people are thinking about at the moment. The AI revolution, is changing industry, and not just one, but every industry. It's not just about technology. Technology is, touching healthcare, education, law, agriculture. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Immigration is touching it. Technology is touching it. So the work that I do, there are businesses in all of these industries that really need to hire people. And the questions that, it's a very, very good question. What visas do they use? There's a way to actually analyze what kind of jobs people are doing, what kind of background is necessary for those jobs, and does the employer really have the ability to prove that they have the financial means to hire the person that they're trying to bring on board? So H-1Bs, for example, the one that is most heard of in the news potentially, is that a professional visa, somebody who has a minimum of a bachelor's degree. The job requires that particular bachelor's degree. So Alina, you and I, with our law degrees, would not necessarily be approved for a doctor's job, for example. There has to be a nexus between the job description as well as the actual job itself. And so that's the H-1B. Sometimes people do not have degrees, but they have genius ideas. And so, for example, if you were looking at Mark Zuckerberg, I don't think he actually graduated. Neither did Bill Gates. They all dropped out of school, but they were geniuses. And so that type of work where you can prove you are one of the top in your field, that is called an O visa. And so we file for that, and you have to prove you meet at least 3 of the 8 requirements that the law says. And this particular administration has really broadened the policies, where they put a lot of impact and emphasis on people who have STEM degrees, for example. I deal with startups. So startups who have raised a lot of money from venture funding or angel funding, there's a lot of emphasis on that. The L visa, which is a different visa, is for people who have businesses abroad, and they have, consumer bases in the United States, and they are expanding their offices here. So that's a multinational transfer, if you like. And so every visa has its own requirements, and you have to think about what is the right thing for this client in this moment with their facts. I just want to mention one other visa. There's something called an E2 visa. It's one of my favorite visas because people will often say, I just want complete control over my life. How can I have my own business and have the American dream come true? And the E2 is a treaty investor visa where people have citizenship of countries where the United States has commercial treaties with them. But India, China, Indonesia, they are not part of these treaties. But Mexico, various Latin American countries, various European countries, they have treaties with America. And there's a lot of opportunity for people to be able to, just come into the US, whether they have a business or not.
And that is so incredible. So I'm in Florida, and where I grew up, Central Florida, we were the hub of the citrus industry. So obviously immigrants do help so much and impact so much with farming and production. And myself that have those abilities. It's one I'm most familiar with on a business level. I've had clients with permanent residence and such. And I never heard of this, the E2. So that one is actually really interesting to me. So let's say, for instance, you're coming from a Latin American country or South American country, and you wish to start a business, you would apply for that particular visa in order to be able to come in and to legally start your business here in the US?
Yeah. Really great question. Actually, I tell people, look at my 5 fingers or look at your own 5 fingers. And where the first one is you have to have a business that is already set up. It
Okay.
is active and operating, ready to take off. Without your visa, you can't take off. The visa is your key. The second one is you have to invest your own money. And the rule of thumb is about $100,000, but it's proportionate to the business. So if you are buying a grocery store, maybe $100,000 is sufficient. If you're buying a hotel, $100,000 is nowhere near enough. So it has to be proportionate. You have to show that your money has come from legal means. So you have to prove the tracing of the funds. So that's the third element. The fourth element of the visa requirement is that you have to show that the business is going to make money. So it's going to have the operational costs met as well as your own rent and food. So you prove that through a business plan. And then the last element is to show that you are to run the business. And once you have all of this paperwork together, you would apply at the consulate, and the consulate would invite you for an interview. And once they approve it, you can come to the US. The question that a lot of people ask me is, well, if I'm not there, who's running my business? And so often people will hire somebody just to keep the business while they're transitioning over. But that everything is set. I tell people you build a house, you just need to keep to get in the house. The house doesn't apply for that.
And we're going to take a quick commercial break. We are returning to ask more questions of Tamina because it's fascinating. And it really broadens the aspect of how business, economy, and immigration really tie in together. Tune right back in right after this quick commercial break.